If you are a homeschooling parent of an only child, or if you're only homeschooling one child, you're going to want to stick around for today's video because I am giving you my top 3 tips for homeschooling and only. Like I mentioned, I am going to be giving you my top 3 tips for homeschooling an only child, but you will find a link down in the description below that will give you a playlist of other moms giving their top tips for homeschooling one child. This video is in collaboration with Jessica from the Wall Way, so make sure you check that out. Now, let's get into my tips. Tip number 1 is to find the balance between working together and fostering independence. This is one that I see come around quite a bit, and I find that people tend to be either on one end of the spectrum or the other. Either they work really, really great together and they're always together and they love doing all of the chores together and the cooking and the gardening and all of the things, and they really just love spending every minute they can together. And then you have people like myself who tend to really want to push that independence and really need time alone. And so you really dedicate a lot of time to nurturing independence and doing this by yourself and go work by yourself. And really, you've got to have a balance of those. And that is something that I have really worked towards this year, is really working to find a balance between the two. One way that I have really worked towards finding this balance this year is creating the independent basket. If you guys have watched my channel, you know the independent basket has become a staple in our home, and that is exactly what it sounds like. It is a basket full of things that my daughter can work on independently. Sometimes this is homeschool curriculum, and when we start our new school year, I will have some actual curriculum planned for just the basket, but it also includes just fun extra learning activities, fun unit studies that my daughter can do on her own, fun little single player logic games, just anything that I can have her do on her own. But I have also tried to be more aware of the fact that we do need to have that together time. And so I just make sure that each day I set aside some time that her and I are connecting. A lot of times it's at lunch or just after lunch. Just kind of depends on what the day brings, honestly. But you could use read aloud time. You could use morning Bible time. You could really set aside any activity or maybe just a time of day that is that connection point. Because I will tell you, when you have that focused one-on-one intentional time with them, then it is quite a bit easier to get them to work independently because they don't feel so distant from you. Tip number 2 is to build a community. So both for you, but also for your child. It is very important that you put the effort in to building community and giving your child opportunity to make friends, to interact with other children. I know as homeschoolers, we always say, well, they don't need socialization built in. It is just part of life. And that is true. But we have to provide those opportunities, again, especially when it comes to having only one child. So for us, that looks like dance classes. We did participate in co-op where we were able to build friends. That has not worked well into our schedule for this coming year, but we still see those friends and we still hang out with them when we have some free time. We have neighbor friends down the road. And so there are some opportunity that my daughter gets to play with some friends every week. Not only is community important for her, but it's also been really important for me as well. Having the moms from co-op, some of them have become good friends of mine, as well as again, neighbors. I really enjoy just kind of having some free time with them and just kind of chit-chatting. But also, where I find the most inspiration and connected is, of course, over in Made to Homeschool. I really have met some wonderful women over there, both who have encouraged and inspired me, but also that I have been able to encourage. And there is always so much going on. I've mentioned it before. I love just the live hangouts. This is literally like, you go to your friend's house, y'all sit on the couch, you drink a cup of coffee, and y'all just chat about whatever you want to. Sometimes it's homeschool related, and sometimes it's not homeschool related at all. Sometimes it is just whatever you got going on that day, and those are just my favorite times. And I really have made some wonderful, wonderful friendships over there. I'm just really thankful for that community. And my last tip is to be flexible. You are only homeschooling one child. You have the ability to be as flexible as you want to. And while sometimes, again, this is another one of those, you could be on one end of the spectrum or the other. Some people can be extremely rigid in their schedule and not allow for kind of the nuances of life and of homeschooling, and those last minute things that come up really throw them off. And you've got to learn to make a way for some of that flexibility and some of those fun things that will come up. You've got to make space for some of just those fun, spontaneous things that you and your child may want to do because the weather just happens to be nice and you just don't want to be inside. But if your schedule is too rigid and you've not allowed for any of that space, it's going to be very stressful. But on the other end, again, of that spectrum is maybe you are too flexible and there's really no structure and everything is just on a whim. And while that can be fun, it can make it difficult for your child to know what to expect, but also for you to know and to plan for some of those things. So again, this is another one of those finding the balance between structure, but also being flexible, because you want to be able to have that fun, exciting, spontaneous zoo trip or beach trip, but you also want to make sure that you do have some focused school time as well. As I mentioned, there are going to be more videos in the playlist down in the description, so make sure you check that out. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you soon.